Going on a mindfulness retreat can be a wonderful and difficult and transformative experience for those who are participating in one. But recent research shows that it's not just the participants who get something out of it. Those who are leading the retreats, those teachers, also benefit from the mindfulness-based programs and the retreat experience itself. Hi, my name is Ted Meissner, and welcome to Mindfulness Voyage. Today we're going to be speaking with a researcher about some interview insights that came up from teachers who host retreats, and how all of those participants in the research said that, yes, it actually helps us too and improves the quality of our teaching. Let's get started. Our guest today is Bridgette O'Neill. Bridgette, welcome to the podcast, and I'm so glad to be having this conversation with you in this way, because we don't normally speak about about the things we're going to be talking about today. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for inviting me. Really pleased to be here.
So why don't we start by having you just give a brief overview of who you are and what you do within the field of mindfulness.
So I work for the Center for Mindfulness Research and Practice at Bangor University. I teach on the masters there. I also work as a teacher trainer for the Mindfulness Network and as a retreat teacher. So that's a little bit about what I'm doing currently in the mindfulness field.
Great, and that fits into what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm very curious about what interested you in writing about retreat practice in the first place. What was the thing that said, this is something to explore?
Well, firstly, personally, I found retreats just really helpful through my time of practicing meditation and mindfulness. But also, I was working in a role where I was organizing the retreat program for the Mindfulness Network, and aware that teaching on the masters as well, that people undertaking mindfulness-based teacher training are actually required to attend a retreat. And yet there's very little research looking at what people's experience is during teacher training or for attending retreats. So this is really what drew me to it, really a desire to learn more about what people's experiences are, and the role of retreats in the development of people teaching mindfulness and in the quality of mindfulness teaching.
Yeah. Now, the paper we're going to be describing, and for those of you who are watching or listening, again, I will be linking to that paper, which, at least at the time of this recording, is open access, so you can read the whole thing. I'm curious, you studied some different aspects of retreats, and I'm wondering if you could say just a little bit about that structure and the process of semi-structured interviews.
Well, firstly, this began as three master's dissertations. So my colleagues and students took different kind of cohorts to explore what the experience of both retreat teaching and attending retreats was. So we had 8 retreat teachers who were interviewed, and in total we had 11 people who were doing mindfulness-based teacher training and had attended retreats as part of that teacher training. So we went together, the students, myself, and a colleague who was offering some support. We developed these questionnaires really to find out what was people's experience of attending retreats, what was the place of retreat in teacher training, and how did people feel it impacted, if at all, on actually the quality of their teaching.
What was very illuminating for me in reading the paper was these different aspects that were explored around the teacher's perceptions about retreats, its value, the participant experience, and then their outcomes. And typically we tend maybe not to have that broad or insightful view. So you did the interviews, and What did you find? What were some of the things that stood out for you in the results of this research?
Mm-hmm. Well, firstly, we didn't know this would emerge, but we did the analysis of the data from the teachers and from those who had been on retreat separately. And actually, there were 4 shared overall themes. So it was kind of lovely to see that the perceptions and intentions of the teachers were matched by the experiences of the retreatants. So that was one thing that we found. And then I guess the headlines were that the different elements of retreat were named that offer a kind of unique learning experience for people. So the opportunity to let go of everyday tasks, really to experience simplicity through letting go of all the busyness, through the structure of the retreat, with the silence. These were really important elements, along with a feeling of safety that was kind of foundational for people to be able to engage in the retreats. And yeah, the continuity of practice was actually really important. One participant talked about the kind of insights that came from retreat. It felt like retreat had been an accelerator for those insights that would have taken really a long time in everyday practice to emerge. So yeah, the one thing was about the unique learning environment that retreats offer. Yeah. Another overarching theme was about the role of the teacher. And there were 2 aspects to this. One was around the input that teachers give. So the conceptual input, talks, also guidance. And yeah, that was valued as a way of kind of navigating the different experiences that come along on retreat. So kind of framework for understanding these kind of individual experiences that come along and how that might make sense of in a broader framework of how it is to be human, really, kinds of struggles we encounter, and also the kinds of really supportive qualities of mind that are available to us. Another aspect of the role of the teacher was around the teacher's embodiment. We speak about this in mindfulness-based program teaching, the capacity of the teacher to embody, to be present in a certain way that makes mindfulness available through their quality of attention, through the attitudes they bring to being in the moment. And that this came out as a theme and as something valued on retreat. So that was really striking. And participants talked about feeling really inspired. So it wasn't just that they kind of appreciated that, it impacted their practice, actually. It talked about feeling more motivated, being able to experience the embodiment of the teacher. It kind of gave them extra motivation in their own practice. There were also some examples of there were 3 participants who had some difficult experiences in relation to the teacher. And actually, they viewed that as a lack of embodiment, kind of moments of reactivity from the teacher that had really had a big impact on the whole experience of the retreat. So that also feels really important. The teacher's quality of presence and how they are relationally really being an important aspect of the retreat experience. And then headlines in terms of impact on practice. It was really clear that that both the teachers and the retreatants felt that, again, retreats offered this unique experience to deepen into practice. And the different areas that were highlighted here, one was around being with difficulty, which we know on mindfulness-based programs, and that's a really central element of what mindfulness enables us to turn towards difficulty. And that really was a strong theme in people's experience of being on retreat. Both discovering that difficulties, at times quite strong difficulties, could come up, but that also would pass. And also that their way of viewing and relating to difficulty, but also really could change. And one person describing the shift from viewing a particular difficulty as a real kind of vulnerability and a struggle and something that they didn't want, to the shift to viewing it actually as an asset for them, which was really powerful.
Yeah, it sounds like in many ways this was validating of our perception as teachers of the value of retreats,
Mm-hmm.
and the validating of, because of some sharing around adverse effects stemming from the embodiment of the teacher, or maybe the lack of embodiment of the teacher, is why it is so important to have good training, continuing
Mm-hmm.
education, a personal practice, these kinds of things that you don't get when it's just you purchased a script to do any sort of mindfulness work. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, Bridgette, if upon reflection of the work and your own retreat practice, both in
Mm-hmm.
hosting them and attending them yourselves, what are some things that for you personally are inspiring about this research that are maybe indicative of some areas to focus on in future retreat practice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, certainly, it seemed like many retreatants described something that I could recognize, a kind of journey through retreat of first few days, restlessness, anxiety, really busy mind, falling asleep, and then the whole system kind of settling and describing these really helpful qualities of mind emerging. Um, and with that, insights coming along. So that in itself, kind of being able to describe a trajectory, I think that's quite inspiring. If preparing people maybe to go on retreat, knowing that difficulties are part of the territory, um, and and that these really helpful qualities can emerge. We can find a different way of being in relationship to difficulty. So really highlighting the deep value actually of offering ourselves that experience of being with difficulty. In this environment, which is incredibly supportive actually for deepening into practice.
And
Yes,
you
so
bring
that's
up,
something inspiring.
yeah, and this is a particularly important aspect that you're bringing up, Bridgette, is the idea of difficulties are an expected part of mindfulness practice in general, but
Mm-hmm.
also in this environment that is very supportive. It's also an area of concentrated practice, which can bring up things that we might not normally find in our daily practices, especially as we
Mm-hmm.
build some momentum neurologically, some momentum with our practice. And again, the importance of, you use this word so beautifully, and so
Mm-hmm.
these come up and we learn how to work with them. That
Mm-hmm.
what we might consider adverse experiences, and bear in mind in some research, adverse experiences includes things like my shoulders were a little tense. That's an expected part of it. And we're also aware of how to moderate to not get into rather more strenuous or difficulty things that we're not ready for yet.
Mm-hmm.
How we work with that. I'm wondering if you have some thoughts to share about that, because that is something that may come up for participants in retreat practice.
Yeah, definitely. And as you pointed to, I think this research does really highlight the need to look at what kinds of knowledge, experience, skills are required for people to teach retreats, guide retreats. Because yes, it is an environment where we are really immersing ourselves in practice, and some fairly intense experiences might well come along. So really for the retreat leader to know what it is that might come along and how best to support participants, that's a really important area, I think, that's emerging from this. There are currently no good practice guidelines around what's needed to teach a retreat. And that seems like a really important gap, given that retreats are a mandatory part of mindfulness-based teacher training at present. So how can they be led really safely? You know, safety was one of the themes that came through here. What's needed to do to hold a retreat, to be in kind of relationship with participants in ways that best support that safety.
So one final question around any recommendations or encouraging insights you might share with someone who's perhaps never been on a retreat and is interested in it, or maybe for those who've been on many retreats and like, yeah, I'm not getting as much out of it as I used to. What might you share with them to help energize that a bit?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, certainly for those who haven't been on a retreat before, I would say do a little bit of research, find out what's involved. I do read the paper because I think it does give a good sense of what you might expect, and there are other places to look as well, of course, to find out. But going with a little bit of a sense of what to expect is likely to be helpful. And as you're suggesting, Ted, you know, making choices that support this possibility of feeling like somebody can engage. So it might be choosing a teacher that you already know, that came up in terms of safety, going to a place that maybe you may already be familiar with. So yeah, finding out a little bit, making choices for yourself, and knowing that these are, I would say, unique learning opportunities. So an encouragement to kind of go at your own pace. If you're new to retreat, you might want to do a day first. That's definitely recommended, I would say, and do a little bit of research. For those who maybe have been on a range of retreats, so that's an interesting question. But I think in a way, maybe, I mean, every retreat is a fresh moment, and we never know what's going to come along. And of course, noticing what it is that really is drawing our interest right now in terms of practice themes and teachings is likely to be supportive. But yeah, I think the research really showed the value of being able to let go of demands and give ourselves over to practice in this way. It's a real gift, and people, you know, use words like that, you know, amazing, profound, transformational. I think somebody said precious, you know. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And for those, again, who are watching or listening, I'm going to have some links for you where the links are found in whatever platform you're following this on. Our guest today, Bridgette O'Neill. Bridgette, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time, your insight, and the work of those who contributed to this research.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. Yeah, it's been lovely talking to you. And my thanks also to everybody who's contributed to this. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, please do take just a moment and tap that subscribe button. It really helps and doesn't cost anything beyond just the little tap. Remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can, and I'll see you again soon on Mindfulness Voyage.